Okay, so for the purpose of my video and my essay, I chose the topic question of how did the church keep and spend its wealth anywhere from the beginning through the 400s AD. My interest in the topic question of how did the church keep and spend its wealth stems from my interest in how something that is supposed to be as virtuous and holy as the church can have amassed such large quantities of financial reserves since its inception. Through various processes, including tithings, charity, and careful marketing, the church quickly rose to power and soon held the world's largest quantity of money. As a result, the church is directly involved in some of the world's greatest and most famous pieces of art, architecture, and literature. None of this would have been possible without the wealth of the church, and so I feel as though this subject is something that I wanted to explore more of and understand. When looking at the church, the first question that comes to mind is at its inception or in its earliest days, how was it able to make a profit, and how is the profit used? Well, for starters, the business of the church was initially gaining money from offerings and tithings. Without these necessary contributions, it would have been impossible to maintain the institution. As Helen Ree writes in Wealth, Church, and the Transformation of Early Christian Worship, the early Christian communities operated under the common chests, adopted from the Jewish practices. From voluntary offerings and donations of their members, especially their wealthier ones, it was imperative that those who could help did so. Another aspect to remember is that like any business, and for all intents and purposes the church certainly operated like one, it's important to have employees, and those employees will need to be compensated like any other company. However, at the beginning it was mostly up to offerings and charity of the members of the church community, as written in Didache. But every true prophet who wants to live among you is worthy of his support. So also a true teacher is himself worthy as a workman of his support. Every first fruit, therefore, the product of wine press and threshing floor, of oxen and sheep, you shall take and give to the prophets, for they are your high priest. But if you have no profit to give it to the poor, if you make a batch of dough, take the first fruit and give according to commandment. So also when you open a jar of wine or oil, take the first fruit and give it to the prophets, and of money, silver, clothing, and every possession. This was written in support of the prophet and the community surrounding the church in the earliest days. This document written is dated as early as the 1st century, which gives a good insight on the early days of the church. It's easy to forget that in the beginning of the church, not all of it was glorious, and the architectures weren't always temples and basilicas, because initially the church was an urban and poor entity that served the community at large. Large meetings weren't typically held, and if they were often found in smaller neighborhoods in the homes of the parishioners. One example is the Dura Europos Church, which is typically believed to be the earliest identified Christian house church. It dates back to 200 AD and contains some of the earliest paintings and artworks depicting Jesus Christ. The wealth established over time is staggering, but at the beginning of the church it wasn't all that it's since come to be. With this project, I'll look to dive into certain areas more so than I already have. I hope that this video provided insight on what direction I'll be taking this project, and I hope that it provides clear answers to the beginnings of the question about where the church got its money and what were some of the things it did with it.